believe that this has a lot to do with our mindset. And so I want to run through some of these. However, first, I would like to hear from you guys a couple of things that you are grateful for today. So if you can list something that you are grateful for in the chat, that would be awesome. I am grateful today for I think the best way to say it probably is just people in my life that, sunshine, Angie is a really good one. I know it's going to be 75 here today. I'm excited. I see it coming through. I love that. Monica, great one. Very specific. Love it. Making progress at physical therapy. Love it. I'm grateful for people in my life that just bring positivity. And I think it's always nice to have people who bring positivity into your life. So what are some other things that you all are grateful for? Nicole, good health. Love that. Yep. That's always such a good one. Oh my gosh, Amy, leaving for Hawaii next Friday. Grateful for travel opportunities. That is definitely a good thing to be grateful for. We are leaving for Florida next week also, and very excited for that. Stephanie, grateful for your assistant and friend Emily. Yep, I'm grateful for Emily too. She's so good. Oh, Stephanie, maintaining journaling for a week. That's a huge win. Love that. Very consistent. Good job. Good job. Love it. Love it. So wanted to do a quick reminder for you guys to, oh my gosh, Amanda, next Friday, moving to Arizona. Holy cow. That is exciting. Very exciting, exciting. That's one state I've actually never been to that I just have never been to, Arizona. So I need to get out there. I want to make sure and remind you all of our March mindset challenges to watch the interview with Jessie Cole. If you have not done that, you've got a journal topic, you've got an affirmation and verse of the month. You only have a few days left. Let's see, 7 or 8 left to order your favorite book and ship it or give it to someone with an encouraging note. So make sure that you do that. And then we are reading the book Win the Day. Linda and I actually released a podcast yesterday on some of our favorite parts of this book. It impacted, I shared it with Linda and she loved it. And then we did a podcast on it. So if you have not picked up Win the Day, add it to your list to listen to a interview with Chris Hodges and John Maxwell on a podcast. And I know several people made that. It sounds like I need to make it tonight. The homemade chicken noodle soup, which was fun to see. So if you missed last week, we did the 25 principles for winning with people, and I had a lot of great feedback about this. So thank you guys to those of you that enjoyed it and were on and shared it with me. And if you missed it, you can just go back and listen on the Facebook group or on YouTube. So today we're going to talk about making the most of your mistakes, because we all make mistakes and we're going to talk about that. And it has a lot to do with our mindset. And John Maxwell always says, if you're going to be successful, you must stop fearing failure. So I want to talk a little bit about mistakes and our mindset. And I just want to start with asking you just a few questions. And I would just want you to, we're not going to answer them out loud. I just want you to kind of internally think about them. When was the last time that you made a mistake, or even the last time that maybe you failed at something? And see if you can actually remember and what pops into your mind first. And then how did you feel after you made the mistake or after you had the failure? And so what was that feeling like? Do you naturally fear failure or making mistakes? Are you one of those people that you're like, I got to get everything right and perfect and lined out because I don't want to fail or I don't want to make a mistake? Or are you not? So how are you naturally when it comes to failure and making mistakes? And I'm going to give you 9 ways. Stephanie said yes, she is. And I'm going to say that a lot of people fear making a mistake. So thank you for sharing and being vulnerable, Stephanie. I'm going to share with you 9 things, and we're going to kind of go through a lot. But I'll wrap it up at the end and give you an action item. So number 1 is we have to stop fearing mistakes if we want to have a great mindset. We're always going to make mistakes. We just have to figure out how to actually handle them after we do. There's several quotes in here, and I love all of these. Elbert Hubbard says the greatest mistake that one can make in life is to be continually fearing that you will make one because you're going to, right? So John Maxwell broke down the word mistake into an acronym, and here's what it stands for: messages that give us feedback about life, interruptions that should cause us to reflect and think, signpost, a signpost that directs us to the right path, a test that is designed to make us more mature, awakenings that keep us mentally in the game, keys that we try when unlocking the next door of opportunity, explorers that allow us to journey where we have never been before, and statements about our development and progress. So one of the things that John always says is, do you want to live a life that you get great feedback about? Do you want to have time to reflect and think? Do you want to go on a right path in your life? Do you want to be more mature? Do you want to be mentally in the game? Do you want to have more opportunities? All of those things. And if the answer is yes, which most of us, it would be yes, then we have to understand that the mistakes that we make are actually the things that are going to get us there. And I think that sometimes we kind of forget that. He says, if I had to live, this is a quote from a guy that John Maxwell quoted, if I had to live my life over, I'd make the same mistakes, only sooner, so that we can continue to learn from those, right? Let me check the chat. Okay, hold on. Oh, okay. Oh, Troy, I actually had that on my list last night on a drive home, and then I ended up talking on the phone the whole time and didn't get to listen to it. But Troy said Ed Milet podcast this week was all about regret and how it's healthy to have regret. So we'll have to go listen to that. And then Dawn said, I never feel failure, but fail regularly. Me too, Dawn. I always get angry and frustrated and then become determined to get it right. And I think that that is so good to share because that's probably how most of us feel. And we're going to talk about that too. So the second part is don't make the biggest mistake of all, which is doing nothing. Wayne Gretzky, for all you hockey fans that I know are on, you miss 100% of the shots that you never take. John says the number one characteristic of a leader is to make things happen. And you cannot have this and have a fear of failing at the same time. So if you are a leader, then your number one characteristic is usually like, let's make it happen. Let's get it done, right? However, if you have a fear of failure, you're never going to do that because one is going to paralyze the other. You're always going to be paralyzed by the other. And I love this quote. That's the fellow who never makes a mistake takes his orders from the one who does. So in order to be a leader, you're going to make some mistakes. The third point is learn from the mistakes of others. You can never live long enough to make them all yourself. And I think that that's such a great quote. John always says this, and I've heard this so many times: to impress others, tell them about your successes and how you achieved them. To impact others, which you know is my word of the year, and a lot of the word of the year, it is the word of the year for our one team offices. Tell them about your mistakes and how you fixed them. Then when you really want to make an impact or a difference, you can share your mistakes and how you fixed them. And then you're going to make an impact on others. Forget your mistake and really remember what they taught you. And I think that that is such a good thing for us to think about, because we can forget a failure or a mistake that we had, but we need to learn from what it taught us, and we need to continue to move forward from there. Number 4 is focus on progress, not mistakes. We just need to continually focus on the progression. And really, if you think about mindset and keeping your mindset in a good place, when you dwell on mistakes or on failures that you've had, what does it do to your mindset? It like instantly takes you down, right? If you can still have the mistakes, but focus on the progression, you're in an upward swing of positivity. Teddy Roosevelt said, he who makes no mistakes makes no progress. And another couple great quotes: a mistake at least proves that somebody stopped talking long enough to do something. And that's for all of the people that are get ready to never do anything. And then a great Abe Lincoln quote is, the person who is incapable of making a mistake is incapable of anything. So a question for each of you to just reflect on is, do you want progress or do you want perfection? And what do you typically strive for? Do you want to be perfect at everything? Or do you just want to progress and to grow into something else? And that's a tough question because a lot of us want perfection in things. some of you may notice Dawn has already texted me. I just saw Dawn. I didn't read the whole thing, but I just saw the first sentence, which is, I love your new wallpaper. I made a very expensive mistake in our house in Charleston of putting up an entire huge kitchen of a wallpaper that Adam and I hated. And so I recently just had it removed, which was also costly. And then the new one hung, which I do love. And this is the one I originally wanted to go with, and then was afraid that I wouldn't like it. So I went with another one and ended up hating that one. But it's so crazy because Adam was like, you are wanting this to be perfect. Like, you've just got to get over this like perfect thing. And I'm like, no, it has to be perfect. So it's a really good question for all of us to think about is, do we want progress or do we want perfection? The next one is to focus on the future when you're talking about mistakes. It's better to make new mistakes than it is to make old ones. So what are you continuing to make? Dawn, very true. Dawn said she wants both. Raise your hand if you agree with Dawn. Yes, I think that is accurate for most people, Dawn. I love this, that it says it's better to make new mistakes than it is to make old ones. I think that making a mistake and learning from it and not making it again is probably one of the best feelings ever. You all can think of people who continue to make the same mistakes in their life over and over and over and over and over again. And you just want to be like, why? Why are you doing the same thing over and over again? And it's interesting to me when people do that. Yeah, Stephanie, that's a great quote. Tom Ferry, done is better than perfect. Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Thanks for sharing that. I need to add that to this so I can remember that. But it's always interesting to me to see people who make the same mistakes over and over again. And I just think that that's such a great quote. It's better to make new mistakes than it is to make old ones. When we let our past mistakes keep us from focusing on our future, we begin to hurt ourselves and our mindset. And I think sometimes it's just breaking through the barrier of, okay, we had a failure or we made a mistake and now we have to focus on the future. And when we dwell on that so much, and actually, Troy, speaking of Ed Milet, I've heard Ed Milet talk about this so many times. It really does hurt us. It hurts our mindset. It hurts our ability to improve. It hurts our ability to grow. It hurts our ability to help the people around us because we're focused on an old mistake. The next thing is to don't make the same mistake twice. And we just kind of talked about that, but I want to break that down a little bit more. Coach Bear Bryant said, when you make a mistake, there are only 3 things you should ever do about it. Number 1, admit it. Number 2, learn from it. And number 3, don't repeat it. And then Dr. William Mayo, John Maxwell quotes him a lot, said, Lord, deliver me from the man who never makes a mistake and also from the man who makes the same mistake twice. So think about that. We don't want to be the people that never make a mistake, but we also don't want to be the people that make the same mistake over and over. Remember that this was John's favorite part of the whole lesson, and it was definitely mine too. And I even thought that before he even said this was his favorite part of the whole lesson. Remember that the size of the person, not the size of his mistake, determines success or failure. And so I want to spend a minute on this one because I just think it's so important. And I want you to think about, are you the type of person that you see someone make a mistake or fail and you kind of just count them out for the rest of your life moving forward? Or do you really think about who they are as a person and then what the mistake was? So, people who make some pretty big mistakes, but they really turn it around and they do really well. And most of the time when that happens, it's coming with a really contrite heart. And I know 2 different people who made the same mistake in their personal life, in their personal relationships, really actually kind of 1 year apart. And the first person really wasn't sorry. And they never came with a contrite heart. And it was a pretty big mistake. And they didn't turn it around. They didn't care and they didn't do anything with it. The other person that I know made the same mistake and had a very contrite heart. And they really turned it around and they really made it right. And they did something great with it. And I think that you have to think about that when we think about, 1, what kind of person do we want to be? Because we're all going to make mistakes, right? And then 2, how are we when we're judging other people who actually make mistakes? Because John says we must be big enough to admit our mistakes, smart enough to profit from them, not even financially, just in your life, and strong enough to correct them. And when we can be that way, and I think none of us are going to be perfect. Again, that's the whole perfection thing. But when we can strive to do that, I think when we do make a mistake, it's different. And I don't know who had this quote and it got cut off. So sorry about that, guys. But it's a big man is not one who makes no mistakes, but one who is bigger than any mistake that they make. And I think sometimes you just have to be aware of when you see other people that you love or that you care about and they make a mistake, think about the size of them as a person, not the size of their mistake, and then how they turn it around or what they actually do from that. I think this is number 8 is 8 out of 9 is we're going to evaluate their mistakes and respond accordingly. So great people evaluate their mistakes or failures and they respond accordingly. And the great thing about this is to forget your mistakes, you must remember what they taught you. So John came up with 5 great questions. And I think that these are so good to ask ourselves when we make a mistake or when we have a failure. The first one is, what was the mistake? So this is an outward question. So what did we mess up on? What was the mistake? What was the failure that we had? The next one is an inward question. And the inward question is, why did I make the mistake? So if you've made a mistake or you had a failure, you're going to ask, number 1, what was it? And then number 2, why did I make it? Here's where I want to pause before we go on to 3, 4, and 5, because one of the greatest things that John Maxwell has ever taught me is the top 2 questions. Until you know the answers to those and until you get those right, you don't even need to move on to 3, 4, or 5, because you've got to know what it was and why you actually had the mistake or the failure before you can move on to, which is number 3, how can I fix it? Number 4, what did I learn from it? And number 5, how can I teach this to someone else? Because one of the things that all great leaders do is when they learn from their mistakes, they pass them along to someone else, and that way they can help them, right? And I just think that that's such a profound thing because other people can learn so greatly from that. And John always says, never be afraid as a leader to share with someone what you've done wrong, because you're going to help them so much. And that's one of the greatest things that I love about having Linda as a mentor, is she's never afraid to say, like, here's where she screwed up, or here's where she failed, or here's where she did something wrong. And then she's always shares those things with me, so that not that I might not ever make that same mistake too, but at least I can gain wisdom and learn from that. And John Maxwell does that. He says all the time. I'll never forget, we were at one of his big events. It was actually in London, when we went to London, and he had us lined up. One of our big, huge things was to tour John Wesley's original cabin where he did all of his writing and stuff in London, England. And John Maxwell is a huge John Wesley fan. And John Wesley was who founded the Methodist Church, for those of you that don't know who John Wesley is, and he's written many books and all kinds of stuff. And we get to London and something happened and we didn't get to go there anymore. And so John came out and he said, we made a mistake. We made a mistake, and I just want to admit it. And I want to tell you what the mistake was. We were supposed to take you to John Wesley's house today, and we're not going. And here's why the mistake happened. And unfortunately, we can't go there, but instead we're going to learn from this. And he taught us like a 3-hour lesson on how to, and a lot of it was a lot of this stuff, but on how to redeem yourself from a mistake, or when you've let somebody down, how to continue to grow from that. And it was probably better than us going to John Wesley's house, really, to be honest. Like, it was one of the best things, and I'll never forget it. But it was just so cool how he turned that into that. So never be afraid to share a mistake or a failure that you have. And then here's the last part, number 9, use your mistakes to take you to a higher level. Our attitude towards our mistakes will determine our attitude after the mistake. And I think that is a great quote for you to remember. When you do make a mistake or a failure, the attitude that you have around it is going to determine actually what you do after you have that. If we have the right attitude, then you have the ability to be, the mistake has the ability to be a stepping stone or a stumbling block. So if you have the right attitude and you have a failure or a mistake, it can be a stepping stone for you. If you don't have the right attitude, then it might be a stumbling block. Gandhi had a follower who came to him one day and said, I don't understand you, Gandhi. You said something this week, and then you said something different the next week. And Gandhi replied, it's because I have learned something since then. So you have to take what you learn and let it push you to a higher level. And you have to have your attitude around it. And you have to let your mistakes be your friend, not your enemy. And I think if we're being real and honest with ourselves, we probably have had failures or mistakes that we've made in our life that we've let them take hold and be an enemy in us, instead of actually something that we can learn from that. And continuing to grow. Let me check the chat. Stephanie said a big piece of it is willingness to take ownership with humility inspires compassion. Stephanie, I totally agree with that. I think ego comes into play a lot when we don't want to own a mistake. And that takes humility. Yes, absolutely. And Angie, yes, I can definitely share the slides with you. I can shoot them to you in an email, and then I can also, I'll upload these to the Facebook group too as a PDF, so you guys can have them as well. So in closing, I want you to just ask yourself the question as an action item: what mistake or failure do you need to think about that's happened to you or that you've had in regards to each of these 9 points, so that you can be better from it and that others can be better from it? Is it maybe a mistake that you can share some lessons that you've learned with someone else, or a failure? Is it that you need to go back and ask yourself really what it was and why it happened, and then what you can learn from it and how you can fix it and how you can go teach someone else? What is a mistake or a failure that you've recently had that you can learn from it, and so can others? And then I just love this, and I wanted to leave you with this. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail. And I think that, I talked last night to somebody and they said, I feel like I'm just not winning in anything that I'm doing right now. And we all have seasons of life where we have that. If we're being honest, we all have a time where we're like, man, we just feel like we aren't winning, or something's not going right. And it might be right now, and it might have been another time in your life, or it might be a season that you're not even in yet, but that you're going to go through. And I think that when we have those, we just have to know that we can rise from that. It's just our attitude and what we choose to do. Stephanie, thanks for sharing that. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way right now, that that's where they're at, that they just can't win in anything that they're doing. So I think we just need to take a really hard look. And we need to say, okay, what is happening, and why is it happening, and what can I learn from it? So hopefully this was helpful for you guys today. I loved this, and I needed the reminder. So thanks for letting me share it with you guys. And then just a quick reminder of the challenges, which we already went over today. So I appreciate you guys being here. Oh, let's see what Dawn said in the chat. According to John Maxwell, the difference between average people and achieving people is their perception and their response to failure. Everybody can fail forward. And Dawn, you are exactly right. And everybody can absolutely fail forward. And that's such a great thing for us to close on. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
Angie,
that was I was gonna say that was my favorite things going into Keller Williams, fail forward.
Yeah.
Because so many times I worked in the corporate world for 25 years, and it's like that you get ridiculed, and like, but having that mindset of failing forward definitely opened the doors for success for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's all about the mindset around it. Yeah, totally. All right, guys, well, have a great rest of your week, and I'll share the slides. And thanks for being on, and go think of a failure and how you can learn from it. See you guys. Thank you.